let's jump in on Adobe Max. You were busy, a lot of new content coming in, a lot of AI, and you even shot a couple of videos, I think, too.
Yeah, one video there. Yeah. So I think the two big takeaways for me were from Adobe Max. By the way, Adobe Max was my first time there. It was incredible. Just the creativity and the other part of it was all of the demos were live. And with AI, we've seen so many things lately that they're just the canned demos. And I understand why companies do that because things can go wrong. And we saw what happened with Google when stuff went wrong. But they did it live, and they did have a couple of little things where things they had to restart and whatever. But it was really nice to see the tools actually working. But I think overall, there were two kind of main themes, at least for me, that I captured. One is that they're just really addressing this massive content demand explosion, and that's with their Gen Studio solution. And then the other thing, which I think is really cool, is that they're allowing for more creative control. And this is across the board. This isn't just with Gen Studio, which does allow for a lot of creative control, like with Adobe Express, it allows for a lot of collaboration between creators and marketers. But with their generative AI tools, so I know you've played around with Firefly as well. So with the text to image generation, you put in your prompt and you get the image. Well, now with Firefly 2, there's so much more control within the generator that it's no longer something that non-creatives would want to use. It's like you can adjust aperture, you can adjust things like as if you're actually using a camera,
Yeah.
using more, it's more Photoshop-like. So I think that where I say like real creatives versus sort of citizen creatives are going to be more apt to want to use it because it's not just a tool doing it for them. It's really, they're putting so much more into the creative process. And I think this is smart for so many reasons because, if you look at what with generative AI, there's this big question about copyright. And also Adobe's made, big strides in making sure that everything is safe for commercial use. And the ability to be able to copyright something, it has to have like some real like human interaction, some creative input. So I think that's a big step in allowing that to when you have that much input into the process. But then also if you just want to say, make me a dragon with, purple hair and whatever, it'll make that for you too. But if you want it to be, more of a starting point, which then you can layer graphics over it and you can adjust the aperture and you can do all of these things that, I don't know how to use these tools, but
Well,
creatives.
wait a second. I would expect all of your experience you would have, but then again, maybe there's other people who can do it better.
Well, so that's what, it's funny that at first the messaging of creatives versus marketers, as a former CMO, I'm like, well, but marketers are creative. But there is a line between marketers and like the true creatives, the ones who
Yes.
are like sitting at their desk creating art. And, especially as a CMO of a startup, you kind of have to do everything, So I had to have some basic understanding of Photoshop and all of these other tools to be able to do things when the staff was sort of slim. But the real creatives, the ones who, create all these beautiful, literally pieces of art. But they have, now with Adobe Express, you can collaborate between those. And that's the other place where control comes into this is that now with something like Adobe Express, which is sort of like, I think the kind of the light version where you can go into Photoshop, the marketers can, or the creatives can lock down the assets. So they can say, here's the brand approved assets. Don't mess with this. But then marketers in the field who may need to adjust for something based on, some whatever channel they're in or what country or whatever campaign they're working on, they can make these adjustments without messing with the content. And all of this content can now live within Gen Studio. So there's this end-to-end solution, which is Gen Studio, which is basically from ideation to measurement and, at the end of a campaign that manages this whole life cycle of what they call the content supply chain. So there was so much like to take in there. Really just incredible. I mean, I'm not kidding you. At the closing keynote, there were people crying. Like that's
Wow.
I've never seen that at a tech conference before. But, people just talking about their creative process and how it's changed their lives and, this sort of creator economy and how people have been able to really do the things that they love and these tools that allow them to change just their whole, like their life plan, and literally people in tears over it. I mean, it was really incredible.
Yeah. Wow. We spent 7 minutes on Adobe Max.
Yeah,
If we do that, we're not making it through this show.
we
It's
gotta.
an hour and a half. But listen, I think my overall view of Adobe is that I'm impressed that they didn't let the startups come in and wipe out their business. Um, they jumped on generative AI so quickly. I mean, a lot quicker than I would have expected, indicating to me that they had worked on it for a very long time. And here we are. And I saw the Gen 2 Firefly, and it was pretty darn impressive,
Yeah.
coincided with kind of Dolly 3 and all these different things. But I think Adobe is going to be positioned very well if they keep the innovation going and keep the investment going.